Welcome to this how-to video in which you will learn how to administer the GORT-4. To start off, let's address this question. What is the GORT-4? GORT stands for Gray Oral Reading Test, and it is meant to assess oral reading rate, accuracy, fluency, and comprehension. The number 4 just means it's the 4th edition of the test. This test is designed to be administered to individuals aged 6 to 18, spanning elementary and secondary education. It is a norm-referenced test, meaning the test developers administered it to a small group of students to derive average or normal scores with which to compare future test takers' scores. That's just another way of saying that we can label a test taker's performance as above, below, or at grade level. So let's begin with the basics. What you need to administer the GORT-4. Besides the examiner's manual and student book, which generally must be purchased unless you are like me, learning how to administer it in a graduate program, you must also have the following items: a stopwatch or some other time recording device, a pen or pencil, a quiet, comfortable room in which to administer the test, and, depending on how you prefer to mark deviations, a tape recorder. Be sure to establish a good rapport with the test taker as well, and make sure they don't see the test as something that they will be punitively graded on. Now, the specifics for administering the GORT. Here's an example of a page from the examiner's manual. It includes a prompt, a passage which the student will read aloud to you, and comprehension questions to ask after the student finishes reading. We're going to take a look at the 3 of these components one at a time. First, the prompt. This is easy enough. Just read it verbatim to the student. Second, the passage. The student will read it aloud to you. While he or she reads it, you must record where he or she deviates from the text. To do this, you may use one of 2 marking systems, the slash marking system or the miscue marking system. The slash system is simpler than the miscue system. All you do is write a slash for every deviation. If the student mispronounces or misreads a word, put a slash in the middle of the word. If he or she pauses longer than 5 seconds, you may provide the word and mark it. If the student tries to sound out the word, allow him or her 10 seconds to decode before providing the word and marking it. If a student self-corrects, put a slash before the corrected word. For a repeated word, put a slash after the word. If the reader skips a line, stop the timer, direct the student to the correct line, and resume timing once the first word is read. Skipping a line is scored as a deviation. Now, the miscue marking system is more complicated, but it provides more insight into the student's reading strategies. If you prefer to use this system, it is recommended that you record the session. I won't go into too much into the specifics of the miscue system since it has room for adaptations based on personal preferences. The main difference is that you would write out what the student read over the deviated term. For example, notice how the word sitting is written over the word perched on this sample sheet. Circled words are ones that were omitted entirely. If you use this system, you'll be able to go back and see if there were any trends, common mistakes, or miscues the reader made. After the student finishes reading, record the time in seconds and count up the number of deviations, putting both numbers in their designated spots on the sheet. Now, on to the comprehension questions. The student may not review the passage in order to answer these questions. You must read the prompt and answer options, and the student must choose the option they think is best. For convenience, the correct choice is bolded and underlined on the examiner's copy. If the student answers correctly, write the number 1 on the line to the left of the question number. If he or she answers incorrectly, write a 0. Count up the points and record the number in the space provided. Once you're finished with that, take a look at the bottom of the page, where you'll find the score conversion table. To calculate the rate score, find the box in the time row in which the reader's time fits. In this example, the reader took 57 seconds, which would be in the 4th column, giving the reader a rate score of 3, which is the number at the top of the column. Follow similar procedures for the accuracy score, using the number of deviations from print as a reference. In this example, there were 27 deviations, so we have to look at the first column, third row. The number at the top of that column is 0, so that is the accuracy score. To calculate the fluency score, simply add the rate and accuracy scores. So those are the basics for the bulk of the test. Now let's look at how to establish basals and ceilings. First of all, what are basals and ceilings? Basals represent the difficulty level on the test at which we can assume the student is proficient at all levels below. For example, if a student can read proficiently at a 4th grade level, we can assume he or she would ace any readings from a 2nd or 3rd grade level. Anything under the basal level would be too easy for the student. Ceilings represent the difficulty level on the test at which the student reaches his or her frustration level, when we assume any level above the ceiling would be too difficult for the student. The ceiling is also the stopping point in the assessment. For the GORT, you must establish 2 basals and 2 ceilings, 1 each for fluency and 1 each for comprehension. For fluency, the basal is a story which the student reads with a fluency score of 9 or 10. If the student scores below that number at the suggested starting point, you must work backwards until the student scores a 9 or 10. For comprehension, the basal is the story in which he or she answers all 5 of the comprehension questions correctly. The ceiling is when he or she answers 2 or less comprehensions correctly. That is what you need to know about the administering of the assessment. Now let's look at an additional task you will need to complete if you choose the miscue marking system. This page is where you would write the text word and the deviation the student made. After doing that, notice the chart to the right. This is where you note the type of miscue the student made. There are 5 different categories to choose from: meaning similarity, function similarity, graphic phonemic similarity, multiple sources, and self-correction. Meaning similarity is when the deviated word is a synonym of the text word. For example, the student read sitting instead of perched. Both have similar meanings, so a check goes in the meaning similarity column. Function similarity is when the deviated word plays a similar grammatical function as the text word without changing the meaning of the text. For example, the sentence in which the first deviation was made was, "A blue bird was perched on a limb looking for water." I'll now read it with the deviated word. A blue bird was sitting on a limb looking for water. The meaning of the sentence didn't change, and the grammar was also correct, so a number 1 was placed in that box. Graphic phonemic similarity is when the deviated word looks or sounds similar to the text word. For example, miscue number 9 was when the student read fell instead of felt. Both look and sound similar, so that is counted as a graphic phonemic similarity. Multiple sources simply means that the student used at least 2 sources, i.e. meaning, function, and graphic phonemic similarities, to come up with the deviated word. Self-correction is when the student initially deviates from the text and later corrects him or herself without the teacher's help. After you finish filling in the chart, add up the points on the bottom rows, then divide the total number of points in that column by the total miscues and multiply by 100 to get the percentage. The last area of this page is reserved for observations you make during the testing process. This will come in handy when you later analyze and interpret the test taker's scores. And there you have it, all you need to know about administering the GORT-4. I hope it was helpful. Thanks for watching.